Yeah.
All right. Whenever
Start yours, you good?
Yep.
Oh, okay. I just had to remember that we officially changed the name of the show. So guys, welcome to, I guess, technically the first episode of Stalled Aero, because we changed the name. I wasn't married to 107%, but it was a good name. I appreciated it, but now we're Stalled Aero. So
yeah,
mostly because the Twitter handle was available,
which is good enough for us.
Yeah, that was good enough for us.
Yeah.
So so going forward, that'll be the name. You guys will see if you're looking at the podcast. You see we have a new logo. Last one was very loosely based on the Williams FW14 B paint scheme. It's kind of yellow and red and blue. Mm-hmm. And this one is just a martini livery that I had come up with a while ago for the race car podcast, but I ended up going with like a John Player special version for that one instead, which I liked. But the martini was my second favorite, so I repurposed it for the show, which I think
you'll have to send me the thumbnail, or you'll have to send me the logo, and so I can put it on our thumbnail.
Oh yeah, there we go. Yes. So and on the YouTube link, I guess we'll actually have to start using that name on YouTube. So
yeah. We can do that.
So anyway, guys, so we had Saudi Arabia this weekend. Mm-hmm. Real uneventful weekend entirely. Like nothing. I know I've made this joke before on very action-packed weekends, so I should probably come up with something new. But man, just for like right from the very beginning, just an absolute. I don't really want to call it a shit show of a weekend, but man, a lot of things happened.
Yeah, FP1, right? The attack happened.
Yeah, so
FP1
was it like right before it or right after FP1 or something like that, 10 kilometers from the track. Mm-hmm. And it was an Aramco oil facility, so a F1 and one of Aston Martin's title sponsors was attacked by it was like Yemeni rebels or whatever.
Close enough that Max Verstappen thought it was his car burning. And
exactly.
Radioed back to his team asking if it was his engine. But yeah, I saw a video online where they were showing laps of onboards, and one of Charles Leclerc's laps, or one of Max's laps or something. You could see the sky was clear, and then they jump onto Charles Leclerc's lap, and you can see the smoke billowing in the distance. So it was pretty damn close, 10 kilometers.
That was my wife asked me today, because the race for us in Rhode Island Eastern Standard Time was a 1:00 p.m. race, and my wife asked me,
late.
So my wife says, why is this race so late? I said, well, it's a night race. She said, why? And I said, well, so you can't see the smoke from a missile attack. It just kind of worked out, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so.
So there was a big the big to do before FP2, where the I guess the drivers didn't want to race, the team principals did. Eventually the teams the teams won out, but I don't think that the drivers were particularly happy about it. Thankfully nothing else came of that after the missile attack, and it was just kind of standard racing and standard Jeddah shit show, shit housery, I guess.
Yeah, there were some unconfirmed reports about state officials, I wouldn't say threatening the drivers, but pretty much saying, well, if you guys don't race, then we may or may not be able to allow you to leave the country, or you may run into some trouble trying to leave the country. And in FP2 or FP3, it was either FP3 or qualifying, Crofty asked Otmar Safnauer.
That's always a fun name to try to say. I usually just go to Otmar and I don't go any further.
Crofty asked Otmar about it, and Otmar denied it, but just from the way that he answered it, you could tell he was kind of lying. He pretty much said, well, nothing's been said to us from the drivers about it. But I mean, if you have F1 TV, a subscription to F1 TV, and they haven't taken it down or censored it yet, go back and watch that little bit. I think it was FP3 or qualifying. Crofty asks Otmar about that. So, but anyway, that wasn't the important part of the weekend.
That situation is not unprecedented. I guess with sporting events or pseudo sporting events.
And I repeat, unconfirmed reports. unconfirmed reports.
Something like that happened with the WWE, where they were in Saudi, and there was like a pay dispute or something like, or they didn't feel like the correct show was put on, and they just wouldn't let them leave until the performers came back and did another show.
Yeah,
which was up to the standards that they were looking for. So,
I'm not really surprised then, I guess.
Yeah, so it wasn't outside of the realm, I guess, of the believable.
Yeah, and if any country's going to pull that off, it'd probably be a country like Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, they. I mean, you gotta give it to them a little bit, and that they really don't give a shit what anybody else thinks, and I appreciate that. But it would be nice if sometimes they like gave a little bit of a shit. About what everybody else thinks. Might be nice to pretend every once in a while.
All right, well, enough about world politics.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, we'll get back to the zoomy race cars. So it was weird in FP3 how I guess the main thing for me at that point was like, because you watch 1 and 2 and the Mercedes were down the order, and by the time you get to FP3 and they're like 11th and 14th, and I guess I'm shocked. I'm still shocked that we're 2 races into the season and Mercedes really doesn't have a great handle on what is going on with their car. They're still having problems correlating the on-track performance with what they see in the wind tunnel, which is like, that's something that you hope to have the first day of Barcelona testing. And there's still, Toto said it the other day, where there's still parts of the car that they don't understand why it's not working, because it should work.
Yeah.
And that's still very surprising for me from Mercedes.
Especially from a team like Mercedes.
Yeah, you would think, on your smaller teams. Oh, and guys, we have to claim just a small victory here. I think I had sent you this the other day. 1997 Formula One world champion Jack Villeneuve agrees with us about Aston Martin, where he basically said that they copied a Mercedes for so long that they forgot how to build a car.
Yeah,
and that was something we've been saying about Aston Martin for a little while now. So nice to be vindicated by noted level-headed pundit Jack Villeneuve.
Yeah, he may not be the most likable guy, but he speaks the truth. Yeah,
he
speaks the truth. Well, that's why people don't like him, though, because he speaks the truth. Sometimes too truthful.
Whatever is whatever Jack Villeneuve thinks is the truth at that moment, anyway.
Yeah, which is odd because people love Gilles Villeneuve, his father. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I guess Jack was Jack was always a fairly abrasive and kind of with the purple hair and all that stuff. He wasn't always typical for F1, which I appreciate.
Yeah.
But yeah, so just it was still weird, I guess. 2 weeks into the season, it still feels weird to see Mercedes struggle, like really struggle.
Yeah. I don't know if it has anything to do with them getting rid of those side pods. I don't know if that first car that they showed in the reveal was like a prototype of the car that they had done a whole bunch of testing for, and then this non-side pod version is a quote unquote newer version. And maybe they just haven't they didn't have enough time to really test this newer version. I don't know if it's that, or maybe if it's just a combination of things, of having an engine that seemingly doesn't work for any of the Mercedes power teams, and then just a little bit of issue with the aero side of it, and just those 2 things combined is making them slow, because they're not super slow. They're not a terrible team, but they're just not quite up where they're supposed to be, fighting for the top 5 positions. So I'm not really sure what the issue can be. I mean, they're still porpoising a lot, which is not good.
It still looks like a lot of their, at least specifically from Mercedes, I can't speak to McLaren or anybody else, that a lot of Mercedes top speed issue is still more about drag. Just that they're porpoising, so they have to raise the suspension, and because they raise the suspension, they have to run bigger wings. So that's why they're not getting,
even with the raising of the suspension, they're still
it's still
bouncing up and down.
And and that was, well, we'll get to it in a minute, but that was borne out through qualifying at least a little bit, and also into the race.
Yeah.
So
Oof.
we get into qualifying, and you get to FP2, or I'm sorry, to Q2.
Q2. Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, Q1. Sorry. No, we do have to talk about Q1
Yeah.
because when Sir Lewis Hamilton did not make it out of Q1 for the first time since 2017, 2018.
And only a tenth and a half faster than a Williams car and Alex Albon.
Yeah, so I guess according to Mercedes, because I think in FP3 he and George were fairly close. George was quicker, but they were in the same ballpark.
Yeah.
And I guess they decided to take two shots at it. They went in one direction with George's setup, in a different direction with Lewis's setup, and it worked well for George Russell, who he did a great job in qualifying.
Yeah.
And
as good as
Hamilton, yeah. And Hamilton ended up P16, and Yuki Tsunoda would have been ahead of him if his car would have worked.
Yeah, I think so.
He would have been P17 on pace, which is, I mean, God, how long has it been since we've seen that from Lewis Hamilton? I can't even remember.
I don't think even back when he was with McLaren, I don't know if he ever qualified that far down.
Maybe the first year at Mercedes.
Yeah, maybe.
I guess.
Yeah, I don't remember much from back then, but
it looked like, and because we saw in the race that the car was much better with a lot of fuel in it, with a heavy fuel load.
Oh yeah.
So I guess just something about what they did for the qualifying setup just really did not work for him. That was unbelievable, and yet it still ended up being not the biggest story, even from qualifying, that Hamilton was 16th, because in FP, God, I keep saying FP, in Q2, Mick Schumacher just had a ridiculously bad crash.
Yeah, I mean, he got on the curbs, and it just looks like he lost control of it, and did a 180, hit the wall, and then bounced off and hit the other side of the track. Cameras cut away, which is never a good thing. And then
for a really long time too, man. It was a pretty nervous couple of minutes.
And then Gunther Steiner said as soon as the impact happened, they lost radio contact with him as well, which is also very concerning. But luckily, off camera, they managed to get him out of the car. And in an interview today, he said no injuries to speak of. Everything was precautionary, taken to the hospital, obviously with an impact. I think, what would they say, like 70 G's or something like that?
No, it wasn't that high. It was in the 30s.
Oh, 30s. Oh,
yeah.
Why did I hear?
Yeah.
Oh, I think he hit it going 170. I think that's what I think of.
Yes. Yeah, it was 170 miles an hour. It was 33 G's.
Yeah, 170 miles an hour. It's to see him walk out of that without any injuries at all, and then have him literally back at the track the next day. And if it wasn't for not having the parts, he probably would have raced if the FIA would have allowed him.
I don't think he would have had. It sounded like he was medically cleared.
I think so.
Haas was just worried that because they would have had to have totally built up the spare chassis from nothing.
Yeah.
They were just worried that they wouldn't have enough spares for Australia. So so we ended up only seeing one Haas in the race, which
I think he would have made it through to Q3 as well.
He was quick. Because Kevin did, and Mick had been, I think, quicker than Kevin generally. In at least in Q1 he was.
Q1, no, he qualified. He was 14th. Mick was 14th, but he did have pace. Yeah, K-Mag was 9th.
Oh, okay.
He finished 9th. I don't know where he finished in Q2.
Oh, but, all right, fine. So I was incorrect about that. But with the pace he ended up seeing that the Haas had during the race, it was certainly possible that Mick would have qualified well and maybe even scored a point. Who knows? So then we get to Q3, and in a very popular result that I think made basically everybody happy, Checo Perez became the holder of 2 records now. He had the most Grand Prix starts before getting his first victory, and now he also has the most Grand Prix starts before getting his first pole position.
And first Mexican to get pole position too, I think.
Is he? Okay.
I think that's what. Yeah.
I mean, I'd buy that. I can't think of who else.
I think that's what they said.
Be.
Yeah, I don't know too many other Mexican drivers that. Yeah, I think that's what I heard. So.
Oh, okay. I mean, and by the narrowest of margins, a perfect lap by Sergio Perez, and then he was followed by Charles Leclerc and not Max Verstappen in third, but Carlos Sainz and Verstappen coming fourth. And what was he? He was a little more than 2/10 off of Checo.
2.5. Yeah,
2.5. Yes, a full quarter second off of the back of his teammate. It seems like, last year the car suited Max and Checo was getting used to a new team and whatnot. This car this year seems it might suit Checo, not necessarily better than Max, but certainly better than last year's car did.
Yeah. I mean, what did I say? Max loves that high rake oversteery car. Checo's used to that low rake. He's always done well in those kind of cars. Last year he did okay, but he probably didn't do as well as everybody thought he was going to. And then this year with the Aero regs, the way they are in the floor, he's shown a lot more potential in this car just after 2 races, and he's a lot closer to Max during the races as well. So good on him. I was happy for him.
Yeah, he really he isn't losing it. I mean, we'll talk about the race in a minute.
Yeah, that was unfortunate.
It does seem like it's a good match for him. So now he's, top team, car that suits him. I think we'll see a couple of Checo Perez victories this season. That won't surprise me.
Esteban Ocon qualifying P5.
Yep.
Pretty good for him.
George Russell qualifying the car P6.
Yep.
While again Hamilton went out in Q1 P16. I don't necessarily think that that's going to be how it is all season. And it still did seem to me mostly to be a question of setup.
Yeah.
But great effort by George Russell with a car that is still, it doesn't seem to be particularly pleasant to drive, although it's fast, I guess. That was a really, really good lap by George. I think he's going to end up having a good season. He ended up kind of having that curse where he was so hyped that he was, and maybe thought of like as the next big thing so much that he almost became a little bit overrated.
Yeah.
And now it's going to go back around where so many people call him overrated that he's maybe slightly underrated.
Which I think is good. Mercedes isn't super competitive this year. I think it gives George a season to kind of sit back and kind of just get adjusted to being at a top team. And we all know Mercedes will eventually get a handle on things, and that car will probably be up there fighting for wins later this year or maybe next year. So I think it's good for George to be able to still be in a top team, but not have that pressure of, battling Hamilton for the win every single race.
Well, it's also nice for him that he doesn't necessarily need to be the guy. He has Lewis there. For the most part, it's going to be Lewis winning races, or you would, if George beats Lewis out of 23 races, if George wins 7 against Lewis Hamilton, that'll be it. Nobody will be saying, oh, he should have done better than that.
Yeah.
If it's like 23 to, or if it's like 20-3 in favor of Hamilton, not great.
Yeah.
But he does, if he takes 7 or 8 from Hamilton, I think that's a pretty good season for him.
Yeah, it still shows that on a good day, George can compete.
Yeah. And it won't surprise me if he's better than that, if it ends up being closer to 50-50, because George is very fast. He's a very good driver.
And Hamilton's probably, on his way down. I think his best racing days are behind him at this point in his career. I mean, not taking anything away from him because he's still at the top level, but he's probably not where he was maybe 5 years ago, 4 years ago.
No, I mean that's honestly just a question of physiology and
Yeah, that's just
reflexes
age.
and all that
Yeah.
stuff. You're quicker in your 20s than you are in your 30s. It's just sort of
Yeah.
how it is.
Yeah. McLaren's got into Q2 this week.
Yeah.
Which is good. Barely missing out P11 and
Yeah, they're 11 and
P12.
12, right? Yep.
Yeah. But it's a good improvement from last week where they started pretty much dead last for McLaren. It was might as well be dead last. So
yeah, they looked reasonable.
yeah.
The track maybe suited their car a little bit better. I think that was what Lando Norris was saying was it might have been down more to Jeddah suiting the car rather than any improvement that they made.
Yeah.
Which is fine. I think it's encouraging for them, which is good. I don't think anybody necessarily wants to see McLaren struggle. Honestly,
I don't think anybody
really
wants to see anybody struggling.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of people want to see Mercedes struggle, and
Yeah.
a lot of people want to see Red Bull struggle.
Yeah.
Besides that, I think everybody would pretty much sign up for literally any of the other teams doing well.
Yeah, I think in the end, people just want to see competitiveness throughout the grid.
Yeah, a lot of F1 Twitter would disagree with that. They just want to see Hamilton win all 23 races or see Max win all 23 races. And,
yeah.
Because that's not exactly why everybody is tired of Mercedes and, wanted somebody else to win last year and want somebody else to win this year,
Yeah.
But yeah, so then I don't know who else. I'm trying to think the rest of the top 10. So it was Russell 6th. I know Bottas was 8th.
Yeah. Gasly.
Gasly's 9th, Magnussen 10th.
Yeah, Magnussen. So I mean, it pretty much other than Hamilton being out of the top 10.
I guess it was Alonso was also in the top 10, right?
Oh yeah, he was P7. Yeah,
right.
So yeah, other than Hamilton not being in the top 10, it was pretty much, your typical qualifying.
Yeah, it was pretty much the guys that you would expect, I guess, were up there.
Yeah, same as last week. But anyway, to the race.
Yeah, so yes. to the race, I don't know, do you want to set up the opening lap?
Yeah, sure. You
watched it more recently than I did. So.
Yeah, I mean, it pretty much started off pretty well for everybody. Verstappen overtakes Sainz, which I feel bad for Sainz because right when the race started, Perez moved over to block off Leclerc, and Leclerc had to get off the throttle and move over to the right, which kind of squeezed Sainz, and then
he was
Sainz,
stuck.
Out of position. So Verstappen overtook him, got one position back. But yeah, it was pretty much steady as she goes for everybody else. I think there were other drivers that moved up 1 or 2 positions and then were battling out. But, up until the Latifi incident, it was, just follow the leader.
Yeah. And so I guess something that will be relevant, especially where it concerns Latifi, a couple of cars did start on the hard tire. Yeah. Most notably for guys that we'll be talking about, Kevin Magnussen and Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah.
Both took the hard tire. So when Latifi had his incident around, what was it, lap 13, 14, 15, somewhere in the ballpark where if you were on the medium, you were in your pit window for a one stopper. So in that way, the guys that started on the hard tire, Hamilton and Magnussen, when the safety car came out, they couldn't stop. They had to continue on because you could switch onto the hard tire, but then you're not meeting the regulations.
Yeah.
So
and the mediums aren't making it.
Nope.
35 laps.
For sure not. By 14, 15 laps, those tires were, cooked.
Yeah, a handful of cars had already stopped before the first safety car.
So they picked up track position, and then they basically just had to hope for a safety car or a VSC or something.
Yeah, because they went late with those tires.
What did you think of Latifi's actual crash? I wanted to give him. We didn't even mention he crashed in Q1.
Yeah.
And I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt for that one because I really didn't see anything that he could have done. It just seemed like snap oversteer.
Yeah, it looked like he got on the throttle just a little too quick. And I was watching Albon's on board as I was watching the race the second time. And by lap 13, Albon was complaining about tires, and Williams was trying to get him to go +3 on their plan. And he literally came over the radio and said, "No, these tires are dead.
That's not happening.
We can't do +3." So, and at that point, he had already pitted like a lap or two beforehand, and Latifi crashed right then. So, the tires were probably gone. I'm not trying to defend Latifi here, but that Williams just eats up tires.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to
Seemingly.
be easy on them.
Yeah. And just going +1 on Albon's original pit strategy seemed like it was a pain in the ass for him to get that car through. So it probably didn't help Latifi that his tires were probably dead before Albon's tires were. And then they made him go even longer. So yeah, he had a snap of voice there. He probably could have controlled it a little bit better, but man, that car just chews through their tires.
Yeah. It doesn't seem to be particularly graceful. I seem to recall last week after like 2 laps, Albon saying the tires were gone already.
Yeah.
So, and I don't think that's necessarily down to anybody's driving style. It seems that car is just, pretty. I think they're also running fairly light downforce on that car, so that could certainly be a part of it as well. Now, as far as who that safety car benefited, the guy that it most certainly did not benefit was your leader, Checo Perez.
Yeah. Oh, I felt bad for him.
So I guess Ferrari successfully baited Checo into stopping basically the lap before Latifi crashed. Checo pits, Ferrari stays out, they get to stop under the safety car, and you come out with your new running order of Leclerc, Verstappen, and then there was that fun little incident between Checo and Sainz as Sainz was coming out of the pits. What'd you make of that?
I mean, I guess technically Sainz was over the pit line first. So he was right. But I mean, these Checo, I know that he's not going full speed at that point as they're under the safety car, but I think he was only ahead by like a half a meter or a meter.
I mean, it might have been like the length of his wing.
Yeah. So, I mean, Checo can't really do anything about it. And obviously you can't pass under a safety car. So you can't even give that position back to Sainz. And what I like this year is that teams are left to their own disposal to kind of police themselves. So the race director is not telling them to give the positions back. It's up to the teams. Do you want to risk getting a penalty if you think you're right? Or do you just give that position up? If you don't have to, then you're kind of screwing yourself over. So I think Red Bull did the right thing. They probably would have been penalized. It seems like Sainz had that spot. But yeah, Red Bull gave it back to him once the race started back up. So I don't have an issue with it. I don't think Perez seemed too upset about it either. I mean, what can you really do about it?
Yeah, I mean, for him, obviously, he was upset about the timing of the safety car, which was just the perfect thing to just ruin his race.
Yeah,
because it was 2.5 seconds up at the front. He wasn't pulling away, but he was controlling the race. If there wouldn't have been a safety car, which you knew there was going to be because it was Jeddah, he would have won the race going away. It just that's just how it would have been.
Yeah, or at the very least, he would have finished P2.
Yeah, I don't know that Leclerc had anything for him when he was in the front. But I suppose when they went on to the hard tire, things could have changed.
Yeah.
But
he didn't put a fight with Verstappen at the end, which is the only reason why I say he probably would have had a chance to. He probably would have had a chance, but
I thought it was interesting. They showed Verstappen's pit release probably 3, 4, 5 times, and it was Paul di Resta of all people, I think, that was like the voice of reason about it, where it said, yeah, it looks bad from that view, but if you look at the onboard, it's not as bad. And it was if Sainz was maybe 5 feet closer, it might have been an unsafe release, but I think it was basically just like perfectly timed.
I mean, Verstappen was moving, and Sainz could see him moving. So, it's not like he just blindly pulled out in front of him. He did have space, and with the pit limit speed, I don't think there was going to be an issue. These guys are used to stopping on a dime anyway, so I don't think it would have been too much of an issue.
No. And so then from that point, the race was a little bit of a procession for the next, I don't know, 20-ish laps, 20, 25 laps, somewhere in that ballpark.
Yeah.
Until you had the double DNF, I guess, from Ricardo and Fernando Alonso at the same time.
Yeah.
And that was actually, sorry, hold on. I'm about to sneeze. No, maybe I'm not. I don't know.
Okay.
I'll just power through it. It's fine. That was, if a safety car came out, it would have been exactly what Lewis Hamilton and Kevin Magnussen needed. Because they were running, I think at that point, somewhere 6th and 7th or 5th and 7th or something like that. But with the way that it shook out, it worked out decent for Magnussen and for Nico Hulkenberg.
They were able before the pit closed.
Yeah, they got into the pits before it closed. Hamilton did not.
No.
And so Hamilton ended up having to do a full lap and had to stop just as the race was going green again.
Yeah.
And
they were saying he would have gotten out and back in front of Ocon if the pits had stayed open. So
if you watch his onboard, I don't know if he missed the message or if he was being extra cautious, because at that point Alonso was stopped in the entrance to the pit lane.
He was still going slow. I don't think he had stopped yet.
Yeah.
At that point.
So they had told him probably about, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 seconds before he got to the pit entrance to box, and he didn't.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's 100% synced up on the time.
Yeah.
Because then they told him to box again, and Hamilton said, "Well, it's too late. He was already past it by that point."
I think
go
ahead. Oh no, go ahead.
If it is synced up correctly, they told him in enough time to get in. I don't know if he didn't hear it.
Yeah.
But they told him with plenty of time to box. If he would have said, that he thought that he would have crossed the line going in so that he didn't hit Alonso, I could see that, but I haven't heard anything to that effect afterwards.
Yeah, I think the onboards are the messages are a little bit delayed, because I can tell I can see the drivers switching their buttons around about 4 or 5 seconds before the call comes over the headset that I can hear anyway. So I think it is a little bit unsynced. So I think they gave him the signal to box, and then when he came around, I think when he came around, he saw Alonso going slow in the pit entry, and then wasn't sure if he was supposed to jump in or not. That's what it seemed like to me anyway, but I can't know for sure. Right. But I mean, he got screwed over by it.
Yeah,
could have finished P6.
So you ended up with, I think it was 9 laps to go.
Yep.
After the safety car came in, and with because was it a VSC, or did it? No, it eventually became a full safety car, right?
Yeah, it was
because it closed up the field.
Yeah, it was VFC for a lap or two, and then they brought out the full safety car.
Okay. So then,
oh wait, did they? No. I don't think they did. I don't think they did.
Field,
yeah, I don't. Yeah, it was weird because Verstappen, bless you, bless you. Yeah, Verstappen was 4 seconds behind, and then somehow after the VSC ended, he was only 1.5 seconds behind. So I don't know where he gained that time from.
Well, he ended up so he ended up getting right up behind him. It really closed up the gap. So we did get a nice about a 9-lap fight between Verstappen and Leclerc for the win.
Yeah. And it looked like Verstappen had the better of Leclerc there. I think.
It did, but it ended up coming down to playing a little bit of DRS chicken.
Yeah,
where Max with the DRS in the first zone, and last week Leclerc baited him into it 2 or 3 times, going past him so that Leclerc could pass him back, and he did the same thing early in the race, and so Max finally learned his lesson.
Yeah.
stayed behind him, got as close as he could, so passed him in the second zone, and then ended up making enough distance that Leclerc really wasn't able to challenge him again after that.
Yeah, and I think after that pit stop, Red Bull were telling Verstappen to take it easy on the tires because we're going to have a chance at the end of the race. So I think at that point he had better tires and he had the faster car on the straights. And he was smart about when to use DRS and when to not get in front of Leclerc, save it for that main start finish straight, and it worked out for him. Helped him. It helped that he had that the yellow flags for the last 2 laps. But I think even without that incident, I think Verstappen would have brought it home anyway.
On I think it was lap 48 was when they got it right as they were coming right as they were coming into the DRS zone. And so they weren't able to use it at that point. And that was Leclerc was like half a second or so behind him coming onto the straight. So he might have gotten past him. He had it on that one. He wasn't nearly, I think he ended up being like 8 or 9 tenths behind next time they came around. So
I think that, they would have had a battle going into turn 1, but it wasn't like a definite of, like, oh, Verstappen would have stayed ahead or Leclerc would have taken,
for sure,
overtaken. Yeah.
No, and Leclerc got another shot at him. He ended up, the last lap ended up clean. He did have DRS. It's nice the way that it seems like the regulations have basically done what they wanted. In the first race, we kind of thought that was the case. In this one, it really does seem you can get past and then you can hang around and continue to fight back.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say case in point, we skipped over it, but the Alpines.
Oh
battling,
God,
yeah.
That was phenomenal.
And Otmar allowing them to race.
Yeah.
Which was amazing. We got, I think it was like a good 6 or 7 laps of tight battling just between the Alpines. But that's, obviously goes to show that these regs are allowing them to stay close together in battle, which I enjoy. But anyway, back to your point.
No, and they talked about that after the race because they had the interview. They had they were interviewing Magnussen, and then Norris showed up and Ocon showed up. So they had all 3 of them at the same time, and they were asking them about it. And Ocon said it's worked perfectly.
Yeah,
you can, before you would have to hang back and you would try to be at the DRS zone. You'd maybe be right inside a second. But now it really seems, you can hang around half a second off a guy.
Yeah.
And now you can actually make that DRS work. But then right in the next zone, he can hang around half a second, go right past you, and you do it again the next lap. It's been so far, it looks like it's like best case scenario exactly as advertised.
Yeah. I mean, even at the beginning of the race, even Albon in the Williams was able to stick close behind Hamilton for a few laps before his tires started dying off. So, I mean, so far 2 races down, it's been pretty good racing so far. And I think everybody enjoys it.
So Hamilton went past Kevin Magnussen, and then Magnussen went and passed him back.
Yeah, they were fighting for a while too.
So it ended, so Verstappen ends up winning from Leclerc, Sainz, Checo's 4th.
Unfortunate day for Checo. He really lost on.
Was it George Russell? I think ended up finishing 5th. Which that's, I mean, like I said, you didn't hear a ton about him. Pretty much kind of a quiet day for George Russell, but that was a really good effort from him.
Yeah, he's the McLarens from 2020, pretty much just P5, P6, nice quiet day, not really challenging the leaders, but not really being challenged by the midfield either. So good day for George, kept out of trouble too. Pretty good race for him overall.
And he did, I think, some pretty level-headed thinking by George about the car, where he's like, well, all the problems that they have with their car, and it's still pretty clearly the 3rd best car. So once they get it sorted, they'll be up there with Ferrari and Red Bull. For him, I mean, look, it's smart for him to be the guy to come in and say, why would I worry about this? But I think that's, for him, it's got to suck a little bit that, like, you watch Mercedes do what Mercedes does for the last 10 years, and then you show up and it's like the first time that they're kind of struggling a little bit.
Yeah.
I have no doubt that they'll fix it, but it's just one of those things. I think we had said it on an episode last year, but like, it would be hilarious if the Williams was the car to beat this year.
Yeah.
And where, Russell jumps to Mercedes. I know, right? And then and then Williams is beating him down. That would have been kind of fun.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we don't seem to be getting that.
Mercedes always starts off slow during new regulations, though. 2010, when they came in, they kind of, they started off slow, and then Schumacher and Rosberg started moving up the grid as the years went on. 2014 or 15 with the V6 hybrids, they weren't dominating by any means.
Right.
They were still battling with Ferrari, but once they got a handle on things, they started dominating. So I think it's the same thing. They probably won't be challenging for first or second this year, but I guarantee you, come next year, they'll be the car to beat
for sure. After the Esteban Ocon, really good race for Ocon. He was, like I said, best of the rest.
Yeah.
If you're not a Red Bull, a Ferrari, or Mercedes, who's the next name on there? And it was Esteban Ocon.
Yeah. I think if Alonso doesn't, I think Alonso was ahead of Ocon when he DNF. So I think Alonso would have finished P6. But
yeah. Then Lando Norris 7th.
Again, another one.
That's a good result for McLaren.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
I think he was behind Ricardo too.
Yeah, he was. So if Ricardo didn't have the DNF, it might have been double points finish for McLaren.
Yeah.
And they could have used that. But I think even they'll recognize that they had a little bit better pace this week. And Ed Straw, I'm sure, will still give Lando Norris a 9, and he'll give Ricardo a 4.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I can't believe it. What was the scores last week? Norris got a 7.
It was a 7 and a 3.5. He gave Norris a 7 and Ricardo a 3.5. And I'm like, dog, Ricardo finished ahead of Norris.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. And in the write up for the qualifying, it's like, yeah, he had a lap that he said if it was a better car, it could have been a top 10 lap. It's like, okay, but it wasn't.
Yeah. Well, so woulda, coulda, shoulda, buddy.
Yeah,
I don't know what to say.
Yeah, and like they're right there together, and then Ricardo finished ahead of him. What do you want? The man's a terrorist, Ed Straw. I love Ed Straw on Bring Back V10s, but I can't take his driver ratings seriously. I really can't. Pierre Gasly had an interesting race, and then I guess he had intestinal problems at the end of the race.
Is that what it was?
Yeah,
I did not see that.
Oh, dude, he said like the last 15 laps was like the most uncomfortable he's ever been in a car in his life. Every time he turned left, said it felt like he was getting stabbed. And at the end of the race, his mechanics had to like lift him out of the car.
Yeah, he didn't start off well either. I think first few
laps
he
fell behind Magnussen. He fell behind. Yeah,
he dropped outside the points for a while.
I think he was helped by the safety car, because he would have been behind Magnussen, and I think he would have been behind Hamilton. He would have been behind Valtteri, Alonso. So I mean, he would have been out of the points if it wasn't for the safety car and some retirements.
Because he was even like behind Norris for a while. Norris was like P12 or P11 at the beginning of the race, and he dropped back behind Norris. So I'm not really sure what happened to that AlphaTauri today. I mean, I know it didn't look amazingly fast in qualifying or anything either, but he started up pretty high up there and then just started dropping and, lucked out, finished in the points at least, which is good. But kind of.
Oh, yeah, we didn't even mention that Yuki Tsunoda didn't even start the race.
Yeah, 2 cars didn't start the race. When was the last time that happened in F1?
I cannot imagine. Yeah, when's the last time we had an 18-car grid?
Yeah,
pre-Haas, I guess.
I can't remember.
I don't know
history.
Yeah, but poor Yuki. He had that happen in qualifying. It's like, well, starting from the back in the race isn't the worst thing, and then the car just dies on the formation lap or on the reconnaissance lap.
Yeah, that sucks.
I'm like, look, this is one of those races. It'd be like, if something like that happened, I'm just like, I don't even care. Let's just get on to it.
Well, now I guess it's 4 for 4 for Red Bull cars that don't make it through the race.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, they've all had one now.
Yeah. So
all right. Let's do our update on the Hoster plan. Kevin Magnussen finishing 9th in a race, a track that he hadn't been to. And again, he's only been a member of this team for 5 weeks.
Yeah.
And I guess he was having like neck and shoulder problems all weekend as well. And I can't imagine this is an easy track for if you're having neck problems.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that has to do with him being away from the sport for a year, and then coming back and literally without any prep at all, being thrown into the fastest racing series, or one of the fastest racing series. And then, still doing well. The safety car really screwed him over.
It did.
Yeah, obviously he started on hards. He was up there P6 or 7, I think, for a good chunk of the race.
After he was what was he? He was
it's behind the Mercedes.
He started 9th. He passed Gasly.
Yeah.
And he might have been 7th or 8th.
Yeah.
No, I think he was 7th or 8th, and then somebody else had passed him or something. I don't remember.
Yeah, and then he moved up a few spots from the safety car.
With the safety car. He was 5th or 6th, and Hamilton went past him. But so I was thinking about this. When Hamilton came out of the pits, it was 9 laps to go.
Yeah.
All right. And he came out wheel to wheel with Kevin Magnussen, who went ahead of him, and then over the next 9 laps proceeded to go ahead and drop 9 seconds directly on Lewis Hamilton's head.
Yeah.
So I'm aware that the Mercedes is flawed, and specifically that the setup Lewis had in the car was a problem when it had a light fuel load, which the car would have had at the end of the race. But that Haas is a fast car. Yeah. I mean, he
got past Albon
laps of the race.
He got past Albon and Stroll, no problem. I think within a lap or two, he got past both of them.
Yeah, there's no issues.
Whereas Hamilton struggled a bit.
It's on the same tires as Hamilton, and he gapped him by a second a lap.
Yeah.
They took 2 points, I think, out of this weekend for the 9th place finish. Mick not running and all that stuff. But it's one of those they had the 10 points last weekend, but by no means is finishing 9th this week a disappointment.
His final position doesn't really relay how well he drove in this race.
That was really probably a 6th, 7th place race that he had. I mean, not that there's anything wrong with 9th, but that doesn't tell the story of how he and that car were this weekend. Yeah,
especially since if what you're saying is true, he wasn't feeling well either. So,
so I'm gonna every week when Haas scores points and Kevin Magnussen scores points, I'm certainly gonna have to take some time to focus on it. Yeah. So it's just after the last 2 seasons, it's just so good to see for Haas. I'm sure those guys are having a great time right now. So, Hamilton finishes 10th, and the Twitter reaction that I've seen to Hamilton finishing 10th is so funny on both sides, where it's the Max people are like, oh, Hamilton's cooked, started 16th, finished 10th out of 13 runners, by the way. So it's not, and then and the Hamilton, super fans are like, oh, he dragged this car up there and all stuff. I'm like, well, no, I mean, he was a bit lucky getting the position at first, and then he was a bit unlucky at the end of the race. If he would have if it would have been a normal race, and say the safety car didn't happen in such a way that it majorly benefited or didn't benefit anybody, he probably would have finished 10th, 11th, 12th.
Yeah, I think
that's about where he would have been.
Yeah.
It wasn't like some Hamilton, there have been Hamilton, Brazil last year, as much as it's maybe a little bit of an overrated drive because of exactly how fast that car was, it was a perfect drive. But it's not like this was some Hamilton masterclass coming from the back of the grid. Valtteri, Ricciardo, and Alonso are 3 guys that DNF'd that all would have finished ahead of him. He would have been 13th, out of 16.
I think so.
So I think, again, down to setup, just something about that car did not like whatever it was that they did to it.
Yeah, I think by the time the first safety car came out, he'd only gone up 3 positions in 15 laps. Obviously, it's not the same Mercedes as last year, as just in a sprint race, he pretty much overtook the entire grid last year. And this year, in 15 laps, he only got in front of 3 cars. So obviously, the car is not there.
No.
And I think, the car not being there, it's got to play a little bit of a mental toll on him. He can't be as risky anymore. He can't really, knowing he can't push the car, or not knowing how the tires are going to take it. It being a new car in general and being a slow car, it takes a toll mentally. So he's probably not in the correct mental headspace right now. And when was the last time he had to deal with,
Right.
starting in P17? So probably not a good weekend for him overall. Obviously,
no, I mean he's back there being raced wheel to wheel very hard by Lance Stroll of all people.
I know.
Who we'll talk about in a moment.
Yeah, and I think he's still a great driver. I think it was just a bad day. I don't, obviously F1 Twitter is going to make a big deal out of every little thing that happens in a race, but I don't think it's anything to worry about. I think he still has it. Once the car is developed a little bit more, I think he'll be right back up where he was.
11th place, Zhou Guanyu, who had a drive-through penalty for not serving a penalty. So
yes,
I mean, the only reason that Zhou Guanyu did not have consecutive points finishes to start the season is because he didn't serve a penalty.
Yeah, I think it was a slip up from his team. I think
it would have had to have been if if they would have told him, hey, what a 5-second penalty or whatever, whatever the hell the penalty was that he didn't serve. I don't know if it was.
I think it might have been because he tried serving the 5-second penalty under VSC. I don't think you can do that. I think it has to be like served
it has to be an actual under
green flag pit stop.
You think they would have a calculation for that because they're going 40% speed, so it's like, all right, well, 5-second stop go. That's actually like now you're a 7.5 second penalty or whatever.
Yeah, so I'm not really quite sure. I didn't look it up after the race, but I could have swore they did stop for 5 seconds during the pit stop. And then they had an issue with the front jack as well during the pit stop, which made him sit there even longer. So I'm not really sure what that drive-through penalty was officially about. But again, I think he would have finished much higher had it not been for that whole kerfuffle.
Kerfuffle. There we go. Yeah. There's a word I didn't expect to hear on the show.
Yeah.
Nico Hülkenberg comes home 12th. I mean, that was a pretty good finish for him.
Yeah.
That will probably be the last time that we see Hülkenberg in a car this year, because I assume Vettel will be there for Australia. And Lance Stroll finishing the race 13th, 1 lap down. So let's talk a little bit about his incident with your guy Alex Albon. Because there's, well, you go ahead, you have the floor.
Okay. At first glance, I was really angry because I thought, come on, Lance, why are you always turning in on people like this? Because he has a history of doing it. Did it to Yuki Tsunoda last year at Brazil, and Yuki got a penalty again. And I don't know how that works out, but it seems like this just turning in on people trying to overtake him seems to be a thing with him. And then on second glance, and I have to say this first.
It was a bit of a lunge.
Yeah, it was a bit of a lunge. And I came to that conclusion before they handed him the penalty, the grid drop penalty. So it's not like I'm backtracking just because the FIA punished him. I texted you this.
Right. Yes,
so it was a bit of a lunge. I think Lance Stroll could have given him a little bit more space. It was really weird because Alex is on the apex. Yeah, he's got a little bit of a lockup on the inside tire, but it seemed like he had it under control. And he hit the apex, which is the spot. He hits the spot where drivers normally hit the spot on the racing line. And it looked like Stroll was giving him space. And then at the last second, just decided, nah, fuck it. I want this position. And then just completely cuts him off. So would Alex have made the second turn? It looked like it, but he also didn't have that lockup. So I mean, we'll never know because Stroll just turned in on him.
Was
I
it
still think.
Good.
Oh, I still think it was ambitious from Alex.
Mhm.
But I think had Stroll just given him a little bit of space, there wouldn't have been contact there. Somebody would have gone
And
wide. Alex
yeah,
probably would have
and
been forced to give the position back. But
well, and even was it Jensen Button? Was it Button or was it DeResta
I think it was
that
Button.
that basically said, well, if Stroll doesn't turn in on him, he probably keeps the position
Yeah,
because he would have had the better line going through the next turn. He probably holds the spot.
right.
This is probably my main issue with Lance Stroll is that he seems perfectly happy to be technically correct.
Yeah,
In that, Albon's wing was Albon was not ahead. And Stroll knew that he was there.
Mm.
And instead of staying on the outside, and if Albon goes past him, he might have had to give the spot back.
Yeah.
Or instead of, you go around the outside and you fight for it, you keep the position. Instead of doing that, he simply turned in on him and ruined both of their races.
Mm.
I'm not saying that Albon was correct, although I think been fairly consistent in my belief that I think guys should be able to do a bit of a lunge.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like the idea that you have to be ahead. Your nose has to be ahead of a guy to go to his inside. I think that's bullshit. If you're halfway up the inside of a guy, I think you've earned the inside. I don't think that I don't think it's your position yet. You're still, if it's for the lead, if you're not past the guy, you're not past the guy.
Mm-hmm.
But if you've done that in such a way that you can make the turn, like I don't think if Albon did that and then had to straight line the next turn and forced Stroll to the inside, then no, you can't do that.
Yeah.
But if you do that and then you leave Stroll enough room where he now has the inside of the next turn, I don't see an issue with it.
Yeah.
I just, it's racing, if you're not, look at the, that Nikita Mazepin pass from Schumacher last year.
Mm-hmm.
All right. He was not ahead of Mick Schumacher going into that turn. Schumacher gave him the room to make that move, but it was a spectacular move. And it's like people don't want that. They want DRS passes. They want guys to be fully ahead as they're trying to make the apex. Well, then if you're on the outside, why wouldn't you just turn in every single time?
Yeah.
Because you're technically correct, which is terrible. So it's just, it bugs me that's like his strategy is, he knows he's not going to get canned because his father is Lawrence Stroll. So what's he going to do? You got Albon coming up on the inside, and you could say, oh, okay, well, I know the next turn is a right, so I'll have the better line. I'll carry more speed and I'll be on the inside and I'll fight it off, and he'll look like he made a desperate lunge and I made a really great defense.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, he turned into him.
Yeah.
He just turned into him.
Yeah.
But again, he's technically correct. It was his spot. He was free to turn into Alex Albon and ruin both of their races. That's fine. And and people on it's to me, I think it's a cowardly way to race. I think that's my issue with it. Just he's on your inside, so don't hit him. You don't have fenders. This isn't NASCAR. If it was NASCAR, yeah, dude, turn into him because you have fenders. You can do that. I guess even Formula E, I suppose you could do that, or IndyCar, where the cars are robust and they can take that kind of impact. I hate the idea that that's all you do is just you gave up. You just, because you thought that he was going to pass you, so you turned into him.
Yeah, it's easier.
I thought that's I think it's tremendously weak. I think he was technically correct and Albon was technically wrong, but I like what Albon did 1,000 times better than I like what Lance Stroll did.
Yeah, I mean, even if you just go back to like Hamilton, I think he was overtaking, maybe it was Magnussen or one of the Alfa Romeos. Hamilton dived in from the same distance, but the defending driver, I can't remember who it was, knew better than just turn in, you know?
Yeah.
It's either I can turn in and yeah, Lewis will get a penalty, but we're both out of the race,
Right.
or I let him by, or I did try to defend and then try to take him on the next corner and we keep the race going. And then even last week, Verstappen made a dive bomb from like 2 car lengths back on
Yeah.
Leclerc at turn 1. And everybody was like, oh, wow, what a ballsy move. And he locked up too. But Leclerc was smart enough to be like, well, this guy's not making the corner. I'll let
Right.
him go and then I'll just take him on the next straight.
Yeah.
I like that kind of racing better than just being like, no, I'm just going to turn in on him. You know?
I understand the way the rules are written and I don't like it. I
Yeah,
guess
some of them.
maybe it's me being American. I'm sorry, man. I like lunges and got, like late braking and, the old, like, the kind of passes that Daniel Ricciardo made when he was at Red Bull, where it's just,
Yeah.
where in the world did he come from?
Yeah.
And yeah, because maybe you get your front tire maybe you get your wing to the guy's front tire. I'm sorry, that's close enough where a guy shouldn't turn in on you.
Yeah.
Because at that point, it's like, oh, he shouldn't be there. Well, yeah, man, but that doesn't mean turn in on him, because now you're just going to ruin your race just for, again, the sake of being technically correct.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I think Lance Stroll has entirely too much job security.
I think so.
If he was somewhere else, he would be a guy who's like perpetually, I think I used to like Lance Stroll a lot more than I do at this point, because
I've
he
never
does
been
this
high
a
on Stroll.
lot.
Yeah, even before this, I've never been high on Stroll.
I still very firmly feel that he's fast enough to be there. He you know what it is?
He just doesn't have racecraft. He's got pace.
I just don't like his style.
Yeah.
I just like I'll take Max Verstappen, like shoehorning himself in there and then getting penalized or having to give a spot back over this.
Yeah.
It, like, if that's what you want to do, if you want to just turn in on a guy and put both of you out of the race, because that's exactly what's going to happen. Because at that point, when you turn in, even if Albon breaks, you're still, at the very least, you're taking out his front wing and probably your own rear tire.
Yeah.
It's a stupid way to race.
Yeah.
And if his dad wasn't the owner of the team, he would have some consequences for racing stupidly.
Yeah, because it's either he just doesn't defend or he just crashes into other guys. And then
sometimes he's brilliant.
Races.
It's weird. Sometimes he's really, really good. But yeah, I feel like a lot of times, like, the difference between a guy that is, if you're in Formula One, in terms of Formula One, Lance Stroll's a jag, just a guy. Mm-hmm. There are times where he makes the kind of moves that Verstappen or Leclerc or Ricciardo, the guys who are really good, but he's not consistent. I think that's the consistent ability for like a Verstappen or a Leclerc to be able to do the bananas shit that they do is like the main difference between why they get paid to race and Lance Stroll pays to race.
Yeah. I think, I just had a thought and I lost it.
I was just going to say, it's weird that it's weird that like I'm more angry at Lance Stroll than you are.
Well, because I mean, I can see that Albon, had locked up, but I feel like he still had control of his car. He wasn't going out into the road.
Yeah,
it looked like Stroll was in the middle of the track.
I thought Albon was, it was a send. He was on the inside. If Stroll would have given him room, I think he would have made the turn.
Yeah.
But if Albon then tried to like straight line the next turn and force Stroll off the track, then I would say, well, that was a shitty move by Albon, and Stroll is 100% correct in the way that he defended it, and Albon should have to give the spot back.
Right.
I'm not gonna be able to get over just turning into a guy, because you're like, well, it's basically the end of the race anyway, so this is the only position I have left to lose, so let me just take this guy out.
Stroll seems like one of those guys where if the car's on that day and it's working for him, he will drive the shit out of it. But once he feels like, oh man, this car is not doing well today, he just completely gives up, doesn't defend, doesn't bother trying to attack or anything like that. Again, I bring it back to Abu Dhabi 2020. where he kept complaining. I think he was complaining that his ERS wasn't working, and the guys in the pit were like, "It's working perfectly fine, man." And he kept saying, "No, it's not working." And his engineer was like, "It's working." But because he felt like it wasn't working for him, the car was shit that day. He just didn't even bother defending against Kvyat towards the end of the race, even though it looked like he had every chance to defend and keep his position. He just let Kvyat overtake him. And I don't know. I don't know what it is, but just something about him. Like I said, even before today, before that incident with Albon, I never liked him as a driver. Nothing against the guy. He seems like a perfectly nice guy.
No, yeah, seems like a lovely guy, but
Yeah,
it's just
I
I don't
really. I haven't seen him improve in 6 years. I feel like he's been getting worse. Like he had more success at the beginning of his career.
I feel like I was most impressed by him when he was a rookie, when he was at Williams.
Yeah,
where like the conversation about him at that point was not about him being a pay driver. It was, wow, this guy's really good.
Yeah. For somebody who skipped F2.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what I found out?
What's that?
I don't know why. Because we talked about Nicholas Latifi and talked about Lance Stroll. And so I was thinking about it because they're the only two there are two Canadian drivers in Formula One, Stroll and Latifi. They're both, they both have a FIA super license, right? But you know how in terms of like IMSA and WEC, you always see like the driver ratings. Bronze,
like silver,
gold, platinum.
Yeah.
I'll have to find out the rest of the grid. Nicholas Latifi is not a platinum rated driver.
No,
Lance Stroll is. And I'm like, wow, how can you be in Formula One and not be platinum rated? That's crazy.
I mean, has he done any of that type of racing? He's
Stroll done 3 years of Formula One?
Yeah, how do they calculate that rating?
I think that's usually enough. I mean, I guess there's got to be like junior formulas and stuff too. It's not like you don't have to race sports cars or anything like that. I'm gonna have to research this, and I'm gonna talk about it on maybe on the Wednesday show, which we'll talk about in a little bit when we'll
give every driver's IMSA rating.
Right. Yeah. I'll have to look that up and see if there is anybody else there that's not platinum rated. Maybe Sonoda, just because he's super young.
Yeah.
But yeah, I found out that Latifi is, I assume he's gold rated.
I mean, it'd be sad if he wasn't.
Well, because there is another Canadian driver who's not in Formula One, but who is platinum rated.
No, I mean, he might be really good in GT cars or something. I guess like that.
I think it's. I wish I could remember who it is, but I don't know. For some reason, that's just that interested me. And again, we're not. I'm not trying to do Nicholas Latifi slander. I like him better than most, but he's not had a good season so far.
No. Albon's been handedly.
Oh, just manhandling him. I mean, in terms of qualifying, I think he's consistently being his teammate by the most of anybody in Formula One right now over the first,
2 races. Yeah.
It might have, in terms of time, it was either him or it was Valtteri that was up by the most. I forget.
Yeah. But Joe's a rookie and Bottas is like 10 years, 8, 10 years.
And is also noted, an excellent qualifier.
But anyway, back to the incident. Albon gets a 3 spot drop next week, which I don't think will really affect him much at all anyway.
And 2 license points, right?
Yeah, and 2 license points. But
which is probably not a big deal for him because he didn't race last year.
I was reading on Twitter and Reddit, and people were saying, why even make that move for P12? Because it's fucking racing, man. You race to race. You don't race until the second to last lap and just say, fuck it, I'm not gonna.
No, it's the same thing. It's the same thing as the Latifi at Abu Dhabi last year. He was trying to go around Mick Schumacher.
Yeah.
And
you're racing. Yeah. Why else are you there? There's another,
there's a race happening for the championship, but Alex Albon has his own race. He is entitled to his race.
Yeah. Which is why I don't like the blue flag rules, but anyway.
I mean, if you're not doing anything else, but I'm like, if the leader's coming through and these two guys are fighting for 7th position, I don't think they should have to let the leader through. I think they should be able to fight, and the leader
what I mean.
gets through when he gets through.
Yeah.
You know, if it's one lone car and he's in 18th place, yeah, dude, move your ass over.
Yeah.
You know, let the big boys through.
Yeah,
but
let them throw Mazepin.
Yeah. So Mazepin, Jesus Christ, I wonder what he's up to.
Making TikTok videos about how Haas sucks. I think. I'm pretty sure
that doesn't seem to be true. So yeah, he'll get up to 45 followers on TikTok, I'm sure.
But yeah, anyway, I mean, I am upset, but I can understand why the FIA did what they did, but I'm still with you. I think Stroll could have avoided that, and he just didn't bother to because he didn't want to.
Yeah, and that's kind of it's kind of become the mentality, is that you no longer have any responsibility to avoid an incident. Like you know, I'm a commercial driver. I have a CDL. I can, if I cause a crash by something that I did, right? Like, you know, like I rear end a car, I can lose my license. I can also lose my license for not avoiding a crash that they think is avoidable. Yeah. And I'm sorry, I think that crash was avoidable by Lance Stroll. That's all. I think he could have avoided it. And honestly, I believe he chose not to. That's it. That is
looked like it, because he was nowhere near the apex, and it looked like he was giving room. And at the last second, he just turned in, which is what makes the penalty to Alex frustrating, because I think he had a right to try and make that move. You know, was it super smart? No, probably not. Probably not the best move either. But I don't know. I think it could have been avoided, and it wasn't.
I think we've now spent probably 5 times as much time on this as we spent on Verstappen. Passing Leclerc with like 4 laps to go for the actual win. But you know what?
There's a million videos about that, though.
I was gonna say, yeah, if you want to hear about like the actual things that happen, there's other shows for that. If you want to hear about Kevin Magnussen, Haas, and Alex Albon in great detail, that's why you listen to Stalled Aero.
Yeah. Oh, also, I got to give a shout out to my boy Matt. I don't know if he's still listening anymore, but I just saw him today. He told me to give him a shout out. I think he's subscribed. So MMK.
Oh, there we go.
I'm not going to give out your full name, just your initials, but Matt, thank you for watching.
Right.
Anyway, back to the.
Thank you, Matt.
This. Yes.
Right. I said, did he say that we're doing a decent job? Bad job?
Oh, he just found out today. So.
Oh, okay. All right.
He's going to check out tonight's show. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, there we go. Then he can tell you tomorrow if we're doing it. All right, Joe.
Yeah.
Anything else that stuck out from the race for you?
No.
No, I think that was pretty much the whole thing as far as things that we're concerned with.
Safety cars and the few bits of actual racing that happened. It was pretty boring. Like during that middle part, from once the safety car started,
it was
up
a
until
procession for a little bit, but you know, it was good at the beginning. It spiced up at the end, which is really all you can ask for.
Yeah.
You know, the fight with Max and Leclerc at the end was excellent. I mean, that was really all that you could ask for. You know?
I don't think Checo finished too far behind Sainz either, right?
To almost 3 seconds.
Yeah, it wasn't too far back.
So, all right. So, I do want to talk a little bit about Carlos Sainz.
Yes.
I think going into the season, I think that kind of the overarching feeling was probably that Leclerc is better, but that it was very, very close. And I'm not sure that it's as close as people think.
They're not super far apart. And
I think it's something like if Verstappen and Hamilton are a 10, Leclerc is probably a 9.5.
Yeah, and Sainz is probably
like an 8.5.
Yeah,
8.5, 8.75.
Yeah. I personally still like him better than Checo, but Checo is also next to Max Verstappen, so you kind of have to skew that grading on him a little bit too. But yeah, anyway, your thoughts on Sainz?
Yeah, he hasn't been able to stick with Leclerc. And
glimpses of it every now and again.
I mean, not this season though. I mean, in the first race, Leclerc and Verstappen just kind of ran and hid.
Yeah.
Until the end, it was a closer finish for them, but that's just because of the late safety car and Max being out of the race.
Yeah.
And then Checo being out of the race. You forget Checo was ahead of him.
I only say glimpses just because in qualifying, they're not
Checo was not ahead of him. But,
they're not super far apart in qualifying. It just looks like Carlos is still having a little bit of trouble with this car. And I think even before the safety cars and the VSC, Sainz wasn't super far behind either. But I think he is closer to Leclerc than Checo is to Verstappen as of right now.
Yeah, I mean, that might say more about Verstappen, I guess. Me, I think Checo and Sainz are, I think, probably about level. And Verstappen and Leclerc are maybe very close to level.
Yeah.
And at the moment, I think Verstappen is better. I think at the moment, though, the Ferrari is probably the better car.
Yeah. I think the Ferrari being faster in general.
And Ferrari ran a lot more downforce this week too. So
did they?
And yeah, so
and that's why he was so far ahead of Verstappen in sector 1.
Yeah, and so Red Bull ran much lower downforce, so Ferrari ran higher downforce, so the Ferrari was generally a little bit easier on its tires as well. And Ferrari allegedly is still running their engine fairly conservatively. So I mean, that Ferrari engine seems like it's probably a friggin' monster. So
yeah,
and I would have to assume the same that's the same for Haas and Alfa Romeo as well.
Yeah,
if Ferrari's still running their engine low, then they probably are as well.
Try to stretch out the durability and reliability as far into the season as they can, I guess.
Well, I was actually just talking to people on Twitter about this earlier, where the engines are now homologated through 2026.
Yeah,
you cannot make any more performance enhancements with the engines. You can make reliability changes. So, I mean, that's why, if that was the swing you wanted to take, the thing to do was, all right, let's make a ton of power. And if it's kind of a glass cannon, we can figure that out.
Yeah.
Let's find the horsepower and we'll find the reliability later. I think that's what Alpine did.
They're looking good.
Yeah, not too bad.
Yeah.
Although, Alonso had I guess it was a cooling issue with him. But yeah, I don't know. The like I said, the Ferrari seems to be good, but I don't know. It's interesting the way that Max has raced Leclerc so far versus how he raced with Hamilton last season. And
way more aggressive with Hamilton, I think.
Yeah, I think generally he's raced with Leclerc since they were literally children.
So he probably knows a little bit more.
Yeah, he knows him. He's familiar with him. I think he has a lot of respect for him, and I think he likes him. And he, Max, I'm sure he respects Lewis. I don't think he particularly likes him. I don't have anything to base that on. Just that they're very different people.
I mean, Mercedes and Lewis have been
they've been beating them like a drum for years.
Yeah, for years and years.
Yeah.
That could create a little tension there, but I think it's because Max. If I'm trying to get into Max's head, I think Max knows he can beat Leclerc when he's on a good day, whereas with Hamilton, even if Max is driving very, very well, it's going to be difficult to beat Lewis on pace.
And again, it was Mercedes.
Yeah, Mercedes was always faster.
Well, and when people talk about that, like Helmut Marko or Christian Horner are happy that Mercedes is failing, it's like, well, yeah, they've been literally kicking their ass for an entire decade. I'm sorry, I'm sure Horner and Toto probably don't actually hate each other, but I can't blame Horner and Helmut Marko and everybody at Red Bull for reveling a little bit in the championship last year and in what's going on with Mercedes this year. Because again, they've been kicking their ass every Sunday for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
At some and Mercedes, and Mercedes is always gracious about it and doing the right thing, and they're not usually jerks. So you don't even have anything you can get good and mad at them about. So yeah, just you want to just just kick them while they're down a little bit.
Yeah.
That's a pretty natural sports thing.
Yeah. But we're seeing a little bit more cleaner racing this year from Verstappen and whoever it is he's battling, which is Leclerc. So I mean that's always good too.
It'll be interesting to see how he races with Lewis once Mercedes does get their car under control.
Yeah. I wonder if any of the changes in the paddock have anything to do with that. Maybe Verstappen realizes he's on a little bit of a shorter leash now. More people are watching, and they're getting more strict.
Honestly, some of it too is probably that Max Verstappen is a world champion now.
That's true.
He has said himself he really doesn't care about winning. Like it's not like his goal is to win the most world championships of anybody.
Yeah.
I think it's just with him, it really is individually like, I want to win the championship this season.
Yeah.
He doesn't really have any designs on anything longer than that.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just at least some of it is he accomplished that.
Yeah.
And, like a Dan Marino that never got the monkey off his back of winning a Super Bowl, when Steve Young finally did. And, then you play easier after that.
Yeah.
And I think I think he's going to race a little bit easier now that he's a world champion.
Yeah. Which could also explain how he kind of looks at Lewis and Charles too. So, Lewis was that guy in his way of achieving that dream, and now Leclerc is just the next guy I have to beat to win it again. So maybe it's, he doesn't hate him quite as much.
No, clearly not.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty much the race, at least as we saw it.
We'll do some winners and losers.
Yeah. Who are your top three winners from this race?
Winners, I gotta go with Max Verstappen.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really good race. Number two, probably George Russell.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And number three is tough.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'll just go with K-Mag again, just because.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Not going to anger anybody around here choosing Kevin Magnussen.
Yeah.
I'll go Max, obviously, because that was a great move on Leclerc at the end. I'm going to go Haas. I'm going to go Haas in general, because the pace of the car was excellent. On the hard tire to start the race, he had no issue.
Yeah, overtaking guys on
medium tire cars on a full load and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And not for nothing, but Mick Schumacher not being injured in that accident.
Yes.
Haas built a horse of a car, to take care of their drivers. So that's pretty cool.
Second major injury or second major crash in a Haas where the driver walked away alive.
Even the Grosjean accident. Where
if it hadn't burst into flames, I think he would have walked away without any injuries.
Well, I mean, because even with that, he still jumped out of the car.
Yeah.
And then Lando Norris. It was a good job by Norris today. And he was right in general.
He was right behind. Yeah,
about that.
He was right behind Ricardo for that entire race, pretty much. So
yeah. Who do you got for losers?
Numero uno, Checo. Not that he performed poorly, but he claims the lap of his life. In qualifying to get on pole, first Mexican on pole. I looked that up while we were talking, so that's definitely true.
Good to know.
And looked poised to win that race today, had it not been for an unlucky safety car. Second loser would probably be Alonso. He was in a really good position. He visibly quicker than Ocon this week. after Ocon was faster than him last week. It looked like Alonso was much quicker. And I guess Alpine overall, because they let their drivers fight for a good 12 laps before they told Ocon to hold positions.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that. And then third winner is,
Oh, we're doing
third
losers.
losers.
Yeah.
Okay, I should have thrown Alpine into the winners bracket.
What do you got?
Third loser, probably Hamilton.
Yeah.
Just a terrible qualifying. His race wasn't all that great, and if it wasn't for a series of fortunate events, he wouldn't have made it back into the points.
Right. Yeah, Checo for sure. I'm gonna go Valtteri.
Okay, yeah,
he was running really well, and then they just sort of randomly retired the car.
I guess you could say Alfa Romeo all weekend with Joe and his penalties too.
Yeah. Valtteri, by the way, continued his Q3 streak at I think 103 races in a row.
Good golly, more impressive since he's in the Alfa Romeo.
And it is funny, people thought that would go away, and Valtteri said, "No, not so fast."
Yeah,
I don't see why he won't continue to drive that car in a Q3 almost every week, because that Alfa seems to be a very fast car.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to do Hamilton. Well, look, I want to say Lance Stroll. I really, really do. I'm still mad about that.
Honorable mention, I guess.
Yeah, I got to go Hamilton, just because the qualifying was bad, which I don't really think was his fault. I think it was a setup fault. But with the VSC, the timing on that, he should have been higher. Had some bad luck. But then he came out with the opportunity to pass Kevin Magnussen, and Magnussen dropped 9 seconds on his head. So there's only so many opportunities that you have to put Lewis Hamilton in the losers category, and so you kind of have to when you have the opportunity, because it doesn't usually come up.
Again, we don't want people to think we're calling them losers because they performed terribly. We're just saying they're losers because
it could be
they
bad
lost
luck.
out.
It could be bad performance. It could just be because I don't like you, Lance Stroll.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. Even though I'm not quite as upset with you, I am still pissed at Stroll. So don't.
A little bit. It's
okay.
It's gonna happen when it's
Yeah.
But so that's I think that pretty much covers it. We've been. It's about our show length, about an hour and a half, I think, somewhere in that ballpark.
45,
somewhere around there. So,
all right.
What are you working on? Oh, the video.
I sent that to you.
That.
Did you watch
I watched it?
Did you like it?
Yes.
You think you can work with it?
Yeah, I do think I'm gonna do the Howard Cosell thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that.
All right.
So I'm gonna I'll write something up, and then I will
let me know.
We'll figure out how to make it work.
Yeah, I'll do the final master edit, send it over to you. You can record over it, and then I'll do the edit again.
Okay, so that's cool. I've been doing a whole lot of nothing. If I'm on the computer, I've been playing a little bit of RimWorld. I don't know if you've ever seen that. It's like
never heard of it.
It's like I don't even know what genre you would call it, but it's like you have like 3 people that have like crash landed on an island, and you have to like build a settlement, and there's other people around, and
so it's like a Survivor.
Yeah, sort of. And I guess the point of it is to try to get off the island, or to try to get off the planet, but you can just like make like a big settlement, and you can do stuff like harvest people's organs, and it's a little
it's a weird genre.
It's a little bit. You can do basically anything, which is kind of cool.
Okay. Sandbox survival.
Yeah, a little bit. So I've been messing around with that. Oh, and I've also been working on stuff in the sunroom. One of these days I will do a show from in my sunroom once it's finished.
All right.
I cased in some windows. I put it a sill. I found out, guys, by the way, if home improvement tips, if you have bricks and for some reason somebody used construction adhesive to glue wooden wainscoting to them, and so you have bricks that are covered with construction adhesive, the internet will tell you that the way to get that off is to heat it up with a hair dryer and scrape it, and then clean it with mineral spirits, which is stupid. The thing to do is to get an angle grinder and a 36 grit flap disc, and it just right through it, just brute force and ignorance the entire way. It's beautiful. So
that is a very precise and obscure piece of
yeah,
hardware advice.
I'm hoping eventually it'll come in handy for somebody. So
Yeah,
but
one of you 15 people watching this, I hope that helps you out at some point.
yeah. So if anybody needs any other tips about things, if you need to get something loose, the answer is either a pipe wrench or a torch.
Yeah.
And if you need to get something
Okay.
tight, the answer is also either a pipe wrench or a torch. So you know, yeah. There's no wrong way to use those tools.
Right.
Also, we have looks like we're going to be adding a second version of this show, which might be live, and it will be on the Kirk Minahan YouTube network. So if you guys are unfamiliar, the Kirk Minahan show is a show on Barstool Sports, and they have a YouTube network where listeners of the show, which I am, can put their own content online. And so I've been talking to the producer of that show, shout out Dave Cullinane, and he said he likes the idea. So we think what we're going to do is we're going to do a shorter, more structured show, which will be difficult for us because this show is very ADHD, which I always appreciate.
Yeah.
But we're going to actually put some thought into it, which I said, well, that'll be great. We'll put some thought into it. So
we're going to try with this new one.
Yeah. So when Kirk says that the show's terrible and that neither of us have any talent, it'll be extra painful.
Yeah, it'll hurt.
Yeah, it'll hurt a lot. So, but that we might be doing on Wednesday live on the network, but I'll have to talk to Dave. And if not, we might just record a show and then upload it to their network.
Yeah.
And nothing against our YouTube network with how many subscribers do we have?
34, 33.
34. Okay, well they have about 10,000. So I'm
quite
sure there's not
more.
Yeah, probably not a ton of Formula One fans there, but we're going to try to create some.
Yeah. So, especially since he's in the Boston market, right?
Yes. Yeah. He does a show at I think out of Watertown, something like that.
Massachusetts.
Some people have called into the show to ask if he's interested in Formula One, and he's very promptly said no. Okay. But I'm like, well, that tells me that there are Minifans. That's Kirk Minahan's fans are called Minifans, who are into Formula One. So I'm like, well, maybe we'll if we pick up 3 more listeners, it'll be worth it.
Yeah, I'll be happy with that.
Yeah. So I think that'll about do it for. Yeah. I'll have to see how many episodes we've done at some point. I think we've probably done about 30 total. But the first episode of Stalled Aero.
Yes, cool. Officially.
Yeah. So we will. Well, next week is an off week, so we'll do something.
Yeah, we'll work on something. Maybe we'll finish up that week off. I don't know. We'll work on that other project too. We can do that.
Here we go. We'll have things to do, and if we end up doing the other show, then like I said, it's gonna be geared a little bit towards newer fans. So I don't know if it's necessarily going to appeal to you guys that are listening to this. Yeah. But we're gonna try to take a little bit of a different look at it for that show. Yeah. Like I said, it's also gonna be shorter.
It'll be more general information. Won't be super in depth, and we'll probably just cover like top stories and stuff like that.
Yeah, I was thinking about covering some DTS stuff, but I don't want to. So I won't.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Maybe we can just clear up the mistakes that DTS makes.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
It'll probably end up being longer than the DTS series itself, but
right.
But yeah.
Works for me.
All right.
But anyway, guys, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe wherever you can do that.
Yeah.
Let us know if we got let us know all the things that we got wrong. And
try to be nice about it, but if you're gonna be an asshole, at least be funny about it.
Yeah, if you're gonna be a prick, be funny about it. We appreciate that. But yeah, guys, so that's pretty much it.
Yeah, we'll see you guys after Melbourne.
All right, latest.
All right.